Hey, welcome back. My name is John. This is the Mockingbird. It is a 1969 Firebird convertible wannabe TransAm. That's why we call it the Mockingbird. I know these names are fantastic, like Vinyl Village Garage. What's that mean? Well, I live in a vinyl village, as you can tell here behind me. Vinyl wrapped houses everywhere, and this is a garage. So that's how great we are around here. We're just having some fun is the idea of building these cars, sharing the knowledge and the do's and the don'ts and the whys and maybe nots. I mean, I've been doing this long enough that I have fell on my face many times, and that's why I'm going to share with you to save you that grief so that you can keep working and making great progress on your car without burning, spinning your tires in the mud, so to speak, so you can keep moving forward and save you some of that frustration, or see how not to do it, I sometimes like to say. But nonetheless, you can see here behind me, she's looking a little cleaner because I'm getting ready to move this thing outside. I got to clean this garage up / paint booth so I can get these things painted. This car is basically ready for paint for the most part. All the body work's done, except I need to take it apart and do a few things. But in order to do that, as you can tell, we got the left-right selector happening there. I can steer it. I got a floor shifter to make it go forward and backwards and park. I got a gas pedal-ish. But last time I drove this, I had to hot wire and jumper wires, and that's kind of obnoxious. And I also have that stacked gauge system coming for the dash. So wouldn't it be cool if I had the wiring in the interior so I could plug those things in, turn the key, start the car, we can test those gauges, and I can tell you how good or bad those stack gauges are. They haven't been made reproduction for quite some time. I ordered a set and it's actually ready and it should be here any day. When it gets here, I want to do a video and I will show you how good it is, or maybe bad. It looks great in the pictures, but I'll give you the what's ups, ins, and outs on that thing, and I'm hoping it works out good. And if it didn't, well, you won't see a video, but I'm really thinking it will work out just fine. But nonetheless, I'm going to show you how to get this thing wired back up, what I like to do, and why, and you can decide what you want to do with that information. And today, here in wonderful, beautiful Indiana, we are not raining. It is blue skies and sunshine with a few clouds, but that's not so bad. And what you see here on the Crapalanche workbench is the original harness that was in the Mockingbird. What I did is I actually wanted to put it in the kitchen sink and scrub it. I thought about putting it in the dishwasher, but that might have been too far. Those chemicals are a little more caustic. But this is the original harness, and I want to reuse it. Some people say you don't reuse harnesses, buy a new one. Well, they aren't cheap, they aren't the same, and I like the original stuff because, well, I already have it. It's part of what I've got. But what you look for in the do's and the don'ts is on the plugs. Are all the terminals still have a copper color? If they're green or white and powdery, probably not any good. So you go through all the plugs, make sure they look like they're intact. And if it has several splices in the harness, I'd probably get rid of it. As you can see, the wire nut here, yeah, that doesn't work in automotive world, but that's okay. That's for the radio. It probably obviously cut off years ago for some reason, or changing the radio. This is missing the end, but that's okay. That's the center console light wire. And you're saying, well, how do you know all this? Well, just do this too many times, right? I can go through this harness and tell you what everything is. Brake light switch, wiper switch. This is your headlight switch. And this one here is your rear lights harness, where it plugs into it. Of course, a flasher, pretty self-explanatory. This is where that cluster is going to plug in. We can test out that new stack gauge cluster and tachometer. Now, I don't have a tachometer lead yet, but we're going to plug it in and make that work. This is our turn signal, ignition. Purple wires are what make this thing go. This is your park neutral or clutch to press switch wiring, depending if you got automatic or manual. Reverse lamp switch to the base of the column. Here's your cigarette lighter light. This is your power for the cigarette lighter. This is anything that's a gray wire is typically hooked to the dimmer switch, so it's an interior light wire. I'm gonna guess it's probably radio, and this yellow wire is probably radio, but I don't remember for sure, but that's what my brain's telling me. This would be for a glove box light, which it had one, but I'm missing the pieces in the gut, so I'll have to get that. And this is the light, I believe, for the heater control. So anyway, that wiring harness looks really good. I've checked that all out. I did wash it off. Now it looks really clean for the most part. Even the fuse panel's looking pretty good. Now I'm missing some fuses because somebody stole them out of there to make another car go. So I have to get some fuses for it. Oh yeah, and by the way, this one here, the wires here, the green, the brown, and the blue, they go to the dimmer switch. Now I know that because, well, it's still plugged in and it still clicks. So I'll probably clean that up, might reuse it. I'll do some testing on it. But regardless how this works out, all the wires has to look suitable and reusable. But what I'll come out here to do, though, I've got this thing all washed and clean, but the wrap is kind of deteriorating and falling apart. So I'll come through and probably wrap these up clean again and keep the wires from looking so, I guess, frayed out and spread out. So I'll probably wrap them up. Now, it wasn't necessarily all the way that way from the factory, but I like to keep things all tight and tidy and clean, and it looks good when you poke your head under the dash. And the other thing is, the magic stuff here in the bottle here. It says WD-40. Now, some of us know what this is. We've been around for a while, right? I buy in bulk and recycle my spray bottles because I'm cheap. So what I'll do, I get this thing all done and all wrapped up again with the new tape. I'll spray the whole thing down with the WD-40 because it actually pulls any moisture out. It's going to seal it up and it makes it shine, looks real pretty, and doesn't leave it real greasy or oily, so the dust doesn't really stick to it. So I'll work on getting all these wires wrapped up, and then we'll get it plugged inside the car. Okay, just a few minutes later, check this out. My bed is looking a whole lot better too. That WD-40 makes that plastic, you can see how much it shakes that dead plastic. It makes it look new. It's doing the same thing here to all of our plugs. My fuse panel looks like new again, basically. All my plugs are clean. It even cleans all the crud off the wires. You can just wipe it off, and it just takes it off effortlessly. So you make all your wires look new. So this harness now is ready to be installed. And the other reason I bring this stuff outside to spray it is I plan to use the garage as a paint booth, and any kind of silicone or oil-based sprays in there is an epic fail. You may cause fisheye, so I would recommend keeping anything, especially silicone, far, far, far away from any area you plan to paint. So let's drag this thing inside and get it plugged in. All right, so you might be asking yourself, why the heck am I going to be installing the wiring harness in the car I'm getting ready to paint? Well, it's simple. This is the paint booth, and I want to be able to drive the car in and out. And it'd be a whole lot cooler to make it operate with the ignition switch instead of hot wiring it. And not to mention, these go in the car anyway. I'm going to have things taped off. It's not going to hurt anything. And it just moves me further down the road to get this thing completed. And this is the idea of just making it work with the key. Sounds pretty awesome to me. And of course, it makes for a nice video because it isn't entirely too hot to do body work and get things going to get this thing finished at the paint. So I'm just trying to find something to still share with you that's definitely worthwhile. So that's probably the why. I guess you didn't need that explanation, but I just kind of felt like, man, I'm getting ready to paint a car. Why are we jumping to wiring for? Well, that's just sometimes how the crazy works. Trying to find something that I can do to keep moving forward because weather permitting, it ain't working for me. But I want to show you something here. If you want to run the harness in the factory location to really want to get ready to install, it actually mounts here. This is, you can see the whole instrument cluster here, your speedometer, fuel gauge, whatever, or if you have the other gauges. But that harness actually tucks inside this channel here. I have zero intentions on reinstalling it into there because I have a feeling, I hope not, I'll be taking this thing in and out 2 or 3 times to take care of some odds and ends. They're going to do the stat gauge step, which mounts here in this location of the dash. It's kind of it's new to the market. I'm hoping that it's good, but if I have problems, I need to take this back out. I don't want to have to fight the harness being tucked into here. So even if I wasn't fighting the harness, I don't normally reinstall it back into this channel. It makes my life easier to pull this thing in and out if ever need to service anything. And the harness we're installing is one basically for the ignition, the fuse panel, but technically there's another harness that goes from side to side for the interior lights that goes in there. You have a convertible top harness if you have a convertible, and you also have a heater control harness that's somewhere in my pile of parts over that I still need to find. But for the most part, I'm going to get the harness ran. I'm not going out installing it, so I just want to let you know, if you're going to install the harness back to original, you need to think about running it back in this channel here, because I plan on sucking it up against the firewall above the steering column above some brackets, so there's no way it's actually going to reach to this when finally installed. So just in case you wanted to know that, I wanted to show you that first. Well, let's get down to business. This is our fuse panel. That's actually going to mount there in that square opening in the firewall itself. You'll see the 2 bolt holes, 1 and 2. That's what these long bolts are here. We'll end up going through and attaching this to the firewall. There is a foam type seal here on this edge. This is original. It's still very soft and pliable, not cracked. So I'm going to reuse it. I have no objections with that because this harness, as you can tell, it looks brand new. It really does. It looks great. So in this case, it's no problem reusing this. But the first thing though, go ahead and mount this up there on the firewall and get it screwed into place. Don't start fishing the wires where they need to go. And what I was talking about is on the instrument panel. If you were to do it like it does in the factory, you want to run in front of these 2 bars. Well, I'm going to tuck mine in here behind it, the harness, and it still will reach everything as it needs to be, but it just makes it easier in case you ever have to take this cluster back out to work on it or service it. Okay. Now, these just screw into the sheet metal, so they don't got to be insanely tight, but you do want it to pull up there. As I knock everything down. There we go. Now we'll get the other one here started. Now this orange wire actually tucks back through the firewall, and I believe hooks in real close to the horn relay. And this brown wire, it actually really where it needs to be. These 2 holes here mount the parking brake mechanism for the pedal. This is the electrical contact for the switch that turns your light on in the dash. It says you left the parking brake on, probably shouldn't drive it. There we go. That bolt's a little bent, so it wobbles a little bit, but it's going. Okay, there we go. Now that's mounted up on the firewall. Now this plug goes towards the rear of the car. We talked about that. That's our rear lighting harness. This is our brake light switch. So if I actually had a brake light switch installed, it'd be going in right about there. I don't have that yet. So let's go ahead and get some other stuff plugged in, because what I'd like to do is get this all put together enough that I can turn the key like a normal car, start it, and of course then shut it off instead of hot wiring it. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna get to the ignition switches right here on top of the steering column and get those 2 wires plugged into that. Now, we'll start tucking this harness up. Like I said, I'm gonna put it behind these 2 chunks of metal on this car. This is the ignition switch wiring. And I've also got the park neutral switch and neutral safety switch wiring here. I've got my speedo cable in the way. But this all goes on that side. Now, if you are really super sharp, this is a speedometer cable. You'll see it's going through the firewall right there above the heater box. This is typically the location for manual transmission cars. This is clearly an automatic. Got an automatic shifter and only have 2 pedals, so that ain't no manual transmission. But that's where the car was configured when I took it apart. I thought it was strange, but figured it's how it was. That's how we're gonna put it back. Now I gotta drop the column down here so we can get those switches plugged in. I don't think I actually tighten these up. They're just hand tight. So I'll get this drop down here. I'll get you a little bit of a close-up of what's going on here behind the scenes. I put the harness behind that. This is gonna plug into our instrument panel. Speedo cable, need to get tucked back in the rest of the way. But you can tell these little holders, little loops that hold the harness, they still line up pretty good. There's one there and one right back here. Now what's coming towards the front here, these are all kind of flopped down here to the front. But this is your wiring for the wiper switch, of course the flasher, and headlight switch. And of course the headlight switch mounts here, wiper switch right below it. So that's orientated pretty good. Coming across the dash, we talked about those guys here. I flip down here underneath the column. These are both ignition switch, turn signal switch, purple's park neutral switch, and this is your reverse lamp switch, which is here on the column. I'm getting ready to drop that down. And then the rest of the wires are coming through here. The yellow wire, pretty sure is radio. Orange wire is cigarette lighter, which resides right about here on the dash. So that's looking correct. This is our ashtray light, I think. I have to do some thinking on that. I thought the ashtray had a fiber optic thing, so I'll do some more checking on that. But that, I don't think that was for the cigarette lighter. Oh no, this might be a cigarette lighter light. Oh man, so my memory's starting to slip. I need to start getting my books back out. That's why we have books. I don't have to remember it all. And then these are the wiring for, this is our glove box light, which is right there. It'll come to the back side. So that's all looking pretty good. This long gray wire here is going to be for our console light. So I'm going to drop the steering column down and show you how that stuff gets plugged in. And easy peasy, right? Now let's get this one here turning. I've only installed this just hand tight for now, because I knew I would be coming in here and plugging things in. You don't necessarily have to drop the column, but I'll tell you, it makes it 11 billion times easier to get to this here. Now, these are the 2 wires to plug into that orientation. You can see that or not, but the clear colored plastic one goes towards the front. Black one here towards the rear. Lock those in. Now, I technically could actually turn the key and it'll crank as long as I jumper these two purple wires. But I'm gonna go ahead and plug the park neutral switch in. I should have that adjusted out right. And our turn signal switch, that's what this wiring here is. I have no lights in the car. Now at the base of the column down here, I know you can barely see it in the camera, but this is your park neutral and reverse lamp switch. Now if you had a manual transmission car, these purple wires would go to your clutch pedal. Switch for clutch to press switch for allow it to crank. And there we be. Now, push this back up into place. Now technically all I have to do now is go under the hood, and that bulkhead plug, when we installed the engine's already wired in, and we tested it because I jumpered it at the bulkhead plug to make this thing start, run, shut off. So all I have to do under the hood is plug it in, and this should work technically. So let's just go ahead and take care of that. Pop the hood up. There's my bulkhead plug right here. Of course, it mounts underneath the power brake booster down there. You can see it there on the firewall. Now, I don't have the other half yet. That's for the headlight harness and stuff. I'm not worried about that right now because we're just gonna make this car operate so I can get it out of here, clean the garage / paint booth, then we can move on to putting some shiny stuff on this car. Okay, now you see that harness went behind the power brake booster. Also in these little wire supports. It should actually lay inside that, like so. Now I'll go ahead and get it plugged in there on the firewall. Got that bulkhead kind of stabbed into place, a little bit of turn by hand on that bolt, but it's a 3/8 of an inch socket. That's what fits on that bolt head. Just get down here, give it a couple of turns. Again, we don't gotta get carried away because we're going to be taking this right back off to install the light harness. But for now, oops, get the camera to stay steady. You guys can see what we're getting into hopefully there. Just get a couple turns out of it. And that's it. Now that's snugged up. Now all I got to do, hook up the battery, and in theory, if everything is correct, this should crank over and really should start too. So let's go ahead and do that just because, well, we can. And I'll say that's a victory. And this thing will be the first time it started with the key since we've actually had a 400 residing under the hood. Now, I guess you could say a Ram Air 400, right? Ha. Okay. Now it's in park. Again, I probably have that all adjusted, but there's a little bit of an adjustment to that park neutral switch at the base of the column. I'm gonna put my foot on the brake just in case. I think I'll feel a little better if I do that. Because, yeah, a lot of work into this thing. Get my big long legs in here. Now there's the gas pedal, which is just the rod. But we'll give this there a twist. Yep, all right, cool. I haven't started this thing for a while. Well, all right. I'd say that's pretty cool. Yep, goes into gear and goes backwards and forward. And watch this. Turns off with the key. Now that it's still like 11 to 10,000 billion degrees out here, I've only been just lightly working on some wiring, but it's 94 degrees and relatively super insane humidity here in Indiana. But I'm hoping that'll give you a little bit of insight where this wiring goes or how I like to do it. Or at least I even showed you where it does go if you want to route it, where it properly ran on the back of that cluster. But now I can move this thing in and out of the garage to clean up this disgustingly dirty garage that I call, soon to be calling a paint booth. So anyway, I want to keep grabbing the camera, get some more videos heading your way. Please keep sending me what you'd like to see. And the last go around, I had a little bit of a rant how YouTube wasn't my friend, but you know what? You guys have been fantastic. That last video I had some of the best comments and definitely put me back on the right track. My mind was in the right place, but you guys definitely helped push me over the top. I had so many people say without these videos that I'm doing, their progress on their project may have come to a stop or not at all. I'll tell you what, that's a victory, and I forgot that. But anyway, I'm not going to talk about that anymore. We're going to keep moving forward and grabbing the camera, making this car go back together and sharing it with you. Nonetheless, however it goes, the good, the bad, the ugly, or the right way, the wrong way, and the VVG way. So anyway, appreciate you following me. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you guys and gals next time.